Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining our session on survivorship bias and why you need to be aware of it. I know you have a lot of good options, so thanks very much for choosing this one. We are hoping and promising to make it worth the time you spent here. So, one of the main things I really love about conferences is all the awesome stuff that we hear about, right? All the new stuff that we can apply. And when I return to the office, when I return from a conference, I immediately want to apply that awesome stuff, right? And the company we work for, InfoSupport, also really values that. So we're an IT consulting company, but we always try to do a little bit extra, and that is why we've got that awesome sauce logo right there. So it's like when you're going to a barbecue and you get your meat on the grill or something veggie, and it's never quite finished without a good sauce on it, on top of it. And that's the way we do consultancy at InfoSupport. We really like to do awesome stuff. But the talk today is not really about awesome stuff. Well, not directly. I mean, it is about things that went wrong and what we can learn from that. So the talk will be a bit different than what I assume you've heard so far. But we'll try to keep it entertaining and take you on this journey with us. So I'm not alone here today. This is my co-speaker Maarten Mulders. He is a regular conference speaker, has been for some years now. He's also a Java champion and an Oracle Ace Pro. He is a software architect and a Java developer also for many years, I believe. And also he's a good friend of mine. So I'm really happy to stand here today together with him.
Oh, thank you. Pleasure's all mine. And in case you didn't know, this is Hanno. Hanno also works at InfoSupport. As an architect, as a developer, a trainer, a speaker. This is definitely not your first time around at the stage, I believe, and also a close friend of mine. So I'm really happy to be on the same stage as you again.
Well, the feeling is likewise. So I've brought an ancient photo with me. I found it in my attic. I think this was the year 2016 or 17. I can't really remember, but this was the first time that I did a conference talk. It was at a conference called J Prime in Bulgaria, and it's a good conference. I like it. And I think it was about the same time that all talks on the schedule of conferences were about blockchain, right, Maarten?
Blockchain. Well, it definitely was the big thing back in the years. So chances are, I'm pretty sure you weren't talking about blockchain, but
I can't really remember. I think the talk was about Gradle or something, but almost all other talks were about blockchain, right?
Gradle, really?
Oh, yeah, really. Also a bit of Maven. Not the point. But I guess you recognize this feeling when you return home from a conference, and almost half of the talks were about this new big thing. So in my case, it was blockchain. You really want to get going with it, right? Try it out for yourself and see if it fixes all your problems. Well, actually, that was what I was trying to do at the time. Blockchain was the ubiquitous problem solver for 2017. And if you look at the value of the Bitcoin in 2017, it's obvious that traders of cryptocurrency thought the very same thing. Like blockchain is going to be the next big thing, and the price went up.
That's impressive. Yeah,
we had to dig a hole there in the ceiling to make it go through the roof there, through the roof and beyond, right? And of course, it's 2023 now, so we know that it also came down quite a bit after that.
I think we can now dig a hole in the ground.
I'm not sure how much your bitcoins are currently worth, Maarten. But
never bought any, so.
Maybe he's the smartest one in the room. He never bought any. Right. Well, I think 2017 was also a year that we had elections, at least in the Netherlands, for parliament.
Definitely.
So in that same year, I went to a conference. All talks were about blockchain. And a few weeks later, I had to vote for parliament in the Netherlands. And I remember finding myself in that voting booth in the year 2017 thinking, what on earth am I doing here, right? We are in a very exciting age of digital technology. I mean, we've invented blockchains. We've invented bots that can play and beat human players at the game of Go, which is a very complex game and even more complex than chess. But still, I'm in a voting booth here and I have to color one of these boxes to indicate the candidate that I want to support. I mean, surely we can do something smarter than
on a sheet several meters wide.
yeah.
That you have to unfold and then use a pencil, right?
Typically, it's
Yeah.
a few meters wide, right? Yeah, so very inconvenient. So surely voting machines can support national elections, right?
Should be.
Um,
Should be an easy thing to do, I'd say.
Yeah, and I remember using voting machines. I think one of the few earlier times when I was allowed to vote. That means when I turned 18 years old, right?
Yep.
And they kind of look like this.
Yep.
At least in the Netherlands, they look like this. I'm not sure. Does anyone have an example in Germany how you vote? On paper, right?
Paper,
Ah,
also.
no innovation there. Yeah,
Either.
I can imagine. I mean, my country is also not innovating. I mean, they used to have these ones, which you could just press a button and then the vote would be stored digitally. But the Dutch Secret Service eventually banned them because they discovered that the secret ballot could not be guaranteed because these machines emitted radiation. And it could be discovered from distances of over 20 meters. So if one of these machines was relatively close to one of the walls of the voting location, you could just go outside and
basically tap into the signal.
intercept the signal, and based on the radiation, you could deduce what data was entered.
Also, I think the company that built them didn't want to reveal the source code because company secret.
Right.
So there was actually no way to prove that your vote was actually stored correctly.
Yeah. But a lot of time has passed since then, and it's been a lot of years. So surely the government must have come up with something, right? Something
I
to
sure hope
improve
so.
it. Yeah, after banishing these machines, but they didn't, and I was really eager to research a better alternative. And I returned home from this conference in 2017, and I thought blockchain, that looks like somewhat of a good...
It was the ubiquitous problem solver, as
Right,
you said. So
right. I didn't even
Yeah.
have to think about whether it would be a good fit. It would solve everyone's problem. So let's just try to apply blockchain as a solution to elections, right? The government didn't improve anything. They just said, meh, we'll leave it just to paper and pencil right now. Actually, when we updated this talk, we discovered that last year a test was done in a few Dutch municipalities where they improvised with a smaller voting
So this is
paper
Dutch
form.
innovation.
Dutch innovation right there.
Smaller ballots.
Just it costs less paper, but it is still analog, right? So we don't have to count on the government here for any innovation, right? So it was all down to me in this case.
Did you ever count on them for innovation?
Well, we shouldn't get
Come
into
on.
that here. But the innovation has had to come from the inside or from the inspiration of these conferences, right? So the government said, meh, again, just find a better way yourself. So I thought it could be interesting to check out this blockchain thing because it's still fresh and everyone's talking about it, and let's just try to see if it would be a good fit for elections, right? That was my idea.
Yeah, makes sense.
So funny thing, in the same year, our company was organizing elections for the Works Council, right? The representative committee of employees that stand for the values of the employees and to make sure that everyone is feeling okay and happy with the conditions at the workplace. So the Works Council at our company Info Support needed a few new candidates there, and I thought, well, we can just send out the same old boring email and fill out a form on Microsoft SharePoint, or we can try to build something with the blockchain, learn something about this new exciting technology, and then send the proposal to the Dutch government that they should adopt our solution instead, because it will probably fix everything.
Yeah.
Right? So that was what I set out to do. So I really thought, well, this is going to fix everything, like was promised to me in that conference. But of course, we ran into problems. We ran into problems right from the start.
You did?
Yeah.
You don't tell me.
Yeah, you sound surprised. Because before we started coding and getting requirements to paper, we were thinking, okay, let's see if other people have tried to do something like this.
Smart move.
Yeah, just research the topic for a bit. And we discovered a few decision models that we read through. because they looked kind of relevant. This is one of the first ones that I came across.
It's my favorite actually. I like this one.
Yeah, we were like, okay, we're done. But
But you didn't give up that fast, did you?
No, I clicked on Google Page 2. I'm crazy
You
like
do?
that. Yeah, nobody does that one. I
Freak.
clicked on Google Page 2, and there I found another decision model. So just to humor everyone here, let's walk through that model and see if blockchain would be a good fit, right? Because I really want it to be a good fit, because I want to learn about this new technology. So the thing that we want to solve here, we're doing elections for our company. Every employee can vote on a certain candidate. There are about 500 employees or something, so the
Roughly.
scale is doable, right? Manageable. And well, let's see if we can store that in the blockchain. So we go through this decision model right here. Where's our spotlight? Ooh, it's a bit slow. There it is.
There we have it. Okay, do we need a database? I think that's an obvious one. We need to store results somewhere, right? Okay, so down to the yes. Shared right access. I guess that makes sense. I mean, everybody's allowed to cast one vote, or maybe multiple, I don't even know. But yeah, everybody needs to be able to write it, so yes again.
Yeah.
Writers known and trusted. Well, I'm not sure about this one, but let's just assume they are.
Let's assume they are.
Yeah.
Then we have to ask ourselves, are writers' interests unified?
Yeah, well, again, let's assume they are.
Well, if writers' interests are unified, it says don't use a blockchain.
Okay.
Because this is the yes branch here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But okay, well,
let's assume that the interests aren't unified. Just humor me for a bit, right?
All right. Can we use a trusted third party for this? Yeah, I think there's many companies that run work council elections.
It would be really strange not to include the trusted third party of our employer.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh well, that's a good one. For instance, yeah, they should be able to. Yeah, everybody should trust them, right? So, okay, but then still
it says don't use a blockchain.
Don't use blockchain. Oh, too bad for you, man.
Okay, so let's click on Google Page 3. Yeah.
You're really scaring me here.
I'm a lunatic. I'm not scared to admit it. This I found on Google Page 3. Another decision model from someone who applied blockchain, right? So someone who knows.
Yeah, right. Okay, let's just start from the top again. Can you articulate a real business problem? Good question, by the way. Yeah, I mean, no problem, no blockchain. That's easy. But we have a business problem, so that's a yes for me. Could it have been fixed before? Well, we were running work council elections since 1980 something.
Yeah.
We didn't have a blockchain back then, so yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
There you go again. Why didn't you just try that?
Try normal database. Oh, I really want to know about this blockchain technology, but it seems like this decision models say you shouldn't do it. So actually,
it seems like the people who actually try to convince you not to do it.
Right.
That's just a suggestion.
So I'm afraid I have to conclude that the first decision model was the best one. I mean, it cost us the least amount of time, and it ended up at the same conclusion.
Very easy to comprehend also.
Right. Yeah. So to summarize, we had just too few requirements to be able to defend at a later time that we chose a blockchain. We have summarized the differences here. So writers known and trusted, if you answer that with no, then the blockchain is a better fit than our use case. Writers' interest unified and trusted third party. Again, for our Works Council elections, the interests are unified because they all want a good functioning Works Council with good candidates in it. You could say the interests are not unified because everyone favors a different candidate, so you could put that on no if you wanted, but then all the other ones would still be yes, right? Private transaction, that's also a good one in our Works Council and in elections in general. I think the voting should be a secret process, so it shouldn't be public information which candidate you select, right? So if we summarize this, it would be a terrible choice actually.
I can draw no other conclusion actually.
And I think for general elections it's the same. I mean, the government is always going to be the third party that is really invested in organizing these elections.
Yeah.
So after thinking it all through, we had to conclude that a regular database would do the job just fine with just a front end and stuff that we've done thousands of times before. So it didn't really make sense to keep the research project anymore because we're not researching that, right? Because we already know how to do that. And of course, like I said, the Bitcoin also lost half of its value at the time, so that was rather symbolic.
Yeah, was symbolic already and became even more symbolic, I'd say.
Yeah. But I'm after this all transpired, I was like, what happened to me here?
Well,
I mean, what phenomenon did I just encounter, and does it have a name?
No,
And then I met Maarten, right?
no,
well,
we
I
met before.
But I ran into him someday.
Yeah.
I told him the story, and he said an
Yeah,
interesting thing, and he's going to say it to you also right
I
now.
think you shouldn't be too hard on yourself here. I mean, you've heard thousands, okay, not thousands, you've heard tens of people saying, look at what I can do with a blockchain. And they
Right.
all shared with you how successful they are. And that's the only thing you heard. And basically you're getting biased. Your brain's getting biased by the fact that you only hear about the survivors. So this is really survivorship bias kicking in and telling you, look at this, it's a shiny new thing, go for it. Don't be too hard on yourself here.
Okay, I won't.
Great. So when I mention survivorship bias, I think the classic example, and some of you may know it already, is this one from planes. Did anybody see this picture before? Please, look at that! A lot of people. For those who are like, I've never seen this one before, or it had different colors. You're right, by the way. Let me
We changed
quickly
colours.
run through it. It's a schematic picture of a plane returning from a mission in in Asia during World War II. The American Navy collected data points on where their planes got hit. And at first they were like, "Oh, look at that! The wings, the tail. Oh, that's really that's where the guns hit our planes. That's the part that we need to reinforce." But that's not the case. Because let's imagine for a second, there's like the fuselage, there's the engines, there's the nose. Why are there no spots there? Those planes never got back. This is the classic, I would say, the classic example of survivorship bias. We only observe the survivors and we draw conclusions from what we see, but we forget to pay attention to what we do not see. The planes that never got back, including their crews that never got back, because they were probably hit there near the, where?
Yeah, it is lagging a bit. Bear with
It's
me.
like way too much. They're probably being hit at the back fuselage, at the engine,
Right.
at the cockpit, probably killing the crew. That's not a good idea if you want
No.
your plane to get back. Engines, nose, etc. If a plane got hit there, it probably never returned. So further enforcing those locations of the plane does not make sense. It makes sense to pay attention to the places where we see hardly any damage. And that's really the case, that really brings us to conferences, because what do we hear at conferences typically? We hear stories of people who used a particular technology and had great success. And they will tell you here, look at the amazing project I ran, look at the amazing results that I achieved with this particular technology. How many talks today did you hear that said, I tried technology X, Y, or Z and it failed miserably? A raise of hands, please. How many did you hear? A half.
Well, 1.5.
1.5.
That's
Well,
fair.
that's
fair.
actually that's more than I expected. I would have expected exactly 0 hands.
It's getting better. at
It's getting better.
conferences. Yeah.
The previous time we did it was awkwardly silent. Nobody had heard about any failures. But the thing is, whatever technology is being presented here to you, it is never going to solve just any problem. It may seem like it. It may be brought to you like, oh, look at this. First we had we had sliced bread, and then we had cars, and now we have this technology. Look at how much amazing progress we made. But that is not your ubiquitous thing that solves everything. It's not your silver bullet that just magically makes all your problems disappear, including any relationship problems or business problems you may. It's one solution for one particular problem that person encountered in their context. I mean, if the world worked that way, I think we could forget about TDD, right?
Yeah.
Do you have an alternative?
Well, I've always liked conference-driven development. So what should we call that? CDD or something? Yeah.
Yeah,
let's call
I
it
think CDD would be a great one. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good fit, right? Learn new skills at a conference and use it to solve pretty much everything.
Yeah. Done. We don't even need resume-driven development anymore. For anybody who used to do that, you can drop that also. It's just you go here every 5 years, you listen carefully, you pay attention, you take notes, you bring it to the office, you just do whatever you heard here, and you're done.
Yeah, so slight problem. If you apply this philosophy to everything you do, I think your solutions will quickly become over-engineered, right? So over-engineering, I've used the term a few times in my working life as a developer, but it is the act of designing a product to be more robust or have more features than often necessary for its intended use, or a process that is unnecessarily complex or inefficient. So if you apply these things like Maarten told you, but take them out of their context that they were delivered in and apply them to your own context without thinking about it, well, then your project might suffer from over-engineering. And I thought when I discovered this, we should look at a list of projects that failed from over-engineering and see what we can learn from them.
We're not going to collect that list here. That's what I've just learned.
Yeah, so I this time I didn't Google, I Wikipedia'd, and there is a page for that. Winnie the Pooh thought a bit about it for me, and I did also, and we came up with this Wikipedia link, list of over-budget and failed custom software projects. And I want to take you through a few examples of those projects. So project number one was a population registration system ordered by the Dutch government. I mean, I didn't need Wikipedia for this one because it was all over the Dutch news, right?
I think it still is, actually.
It still is. It went on for 15 years and it cost over 100 million euros. And it got cancelled in the end. The taxpayer was not amused, as you can see. Two taxpayers are standing in front of you. They are also not amused. This is a waste. You know, if I was working at this project and this news broke out so negatively, I would really be ashamed.
I would actually hope my name was not associated with the project.
Right. Funny thing, after the project was cancelled, the Dutch parliament demanded that the source code became available. So they put it on GitHub.
Oops.
And you can
just don't do git blame, please. Do me a favor. Don't do git blame.
So if you're interested, you can view the source code, but it hasn't been touched in over 6 years since the project was cancelled, obviously. I've brought a second example, a patient record system ordered by the British government. I'm starting to see a pattern here. Also government. Went on for 11 years, cost 9.8 billion pounds, and it grinded to a halt after 11 years. So most of the times these projects cite the same reasons for cancellation, right? Too many features trying to fit into too little time. It went over budget multiple times, tried all kinds of technical innovation that didn't work or didn't fit the domain that they were active in. So actually maybe they did a few times conference-driven development. I mean, went to a conference, saw some pretty things.
Look at that new technology.
We can fix our already late project with it, and then it got later. Right, final example, a business reporting system ordered by the Australian government. That's right, government. And the cause of failing here, I thought it was a very interesting one. Wikipedia says it was a business reporting system, and they used the XBRL file format that was quite new and innovative at the start of the project, and they cite this as one of the reasons that the project is so late, because nobody knew the format and the knowledge wasn't being shared efficiently, and so they really use a silver bullet here. The only upside here is that the project is not cancelled yet. At least it's not cancelled yet. That's what one of the titles says, the heading says. But it is massively over budget and over engineered, in my opinion. So you can quickly get caught in these prickly bushes of over engineering. And it can also happen to you while you're in this conference. So what can you do to prevent that? Well, I think there's more than one way to achieve something, right? So if you've gone to a talk of a certain tool or technique, it could be helpful to also see what other similar tools there are on the market, right? Before you go to the talk even, to see what alternatives there are. So that's a tip I want to give to you, and see if there's another or similar tools that takes a different approach but can solve the same problem, and maybe that's a better fit for your project. So how can you beat the survivorship bias? And the tips that we want to give you today, we divide them into two categories. The first category is what you can do when you're at the conference. So right now, during the conference, what can you do during the conference, and also after the conference ends? How can you make sure that you apply the right techniques to your project and not be blinded by this newness and this awesomeness of these new tools? And we created a fake conference to show you how you can beat survivorship bias at a conference. So our conference is called Silver Bullet Con, silver bullets only, right? Because that's the thing.
That's a 2023 edition, right?
Yeah, it is. Doesn't it say so? It doesn't.
It doesn't.
I put
We should make it a yearly thing, I think.
Yeah, too much time in designing the logo. We should make it a yearly thing. Yeah, definitely. So when you see a conference schedule, you can already make sure that you're not falling into the survivorship bias trap. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's put the example schedule of Silver Bullet Con on the screen and see how you can already get into trouble when you're reading a conference schedule. So this is how I used to read conference schedules. So 2 tracks, and the first slot is about keyboard layout myths. Oh, that's an old talk of mine, and I never give it anymore, so go figure.
What happened to that one, actually?
Yeah, I archived it. And the second talk is beware of survivorship bias. I don't know what it is yet, so I'll probably go to the keyboard layout.
But if it's something to beware of, it's probably scary.
Right.
Stay clear.
Stay clear. Second slot, how I created a massive multiplayer online role-playing game using Haskell only.
Ooh.
Whoa, yes.
Second mention of Haskell today.
Oh yeah?
I saw a tweet
nice.
of somebody who got an award for the first
there she is.
for the first mention of Haskell. Well, second mention of Haskell. There you have
Haskell mention, or an introduction to Kubernetes. I'm really interested in this Haskell thing, so I'll skip that one.
Yeah.
And final slot. Here we go. Monitoring Kubernetes with Prometheus, or return of the blockchain. I don't want to see anything related to blockchain ever again on a conference.
I can see why.
Let's go to the monitoring Kubernetes one, right?
Yeah.
Do you see the problem here that I now have? Anyone sees the problem? I know nothing about Kubernetes, right, in this fictional world.
You also know nothing about Haskell.
Right, but that's beside the point.
That's not what you meant.
Right. Okay, there are multiple problems here.
Yeah, but I think that's the most important one that you mentioned.
The problem that I was referring to here is that I skipped an introduction session to Kubernetes, which is I'm going to give this one more go. It's right here, right? Second slot, because I was drawn to this one, and then I don't want to see any blockchain things anymore, so I have to go to this one, and this is obviously an advanced talk, right? You have to know Kubernetes before you can get any use out of monitoring it. The tip I want to give you is to read the conference schedule not left to right, like I did right now, but top to bottom. Because if you read it top to bottom, you can see that most of the times conference planners will have a logical order to their conference schedule. So if you start at a conference and one of your goals is to learn something, so in this case Kubernetes, they will always put an introduction talk before any advanced talk.
Or at least they'll try to.
They'll try to do that. So there will always be a way for you to get introduced to something and then go to a more advanced talk. And that is something that you can do during the conference already, right? So read them top to bottom. And gain some experience first could also mean that if you have missed the introduction talk, that you can use the time until your next conference to gain some experience with the tool or with the technology and do the advanced talk after that. So that is also a possibility. And build your personal conference schedule accordingly. So think about what you want to learn before you go to the conference, and try to value something that is close to your experience that you can learn very quickly over the next silver bullet. That is a tip that I can give you. And also make sure you meet the prerequisites. So most conferences will probably state that it is an introduction level or an advanced level, or state that you need some level of expertise with the tool to fully appreciate the content. So if the abstract says that, then it's a good idea to listen to that and apply that to yourself in that sense. And also remember the hype cycle. Are you all familiar with the hype cycle? This one, see some nodding heads. Yeah. So depending on where the technology is in the hype cycle, the talks titles will change a bit. I've drafted some examples here. So let's move on to NoSQL, right? Also one of the silver bullets that we've been come across in the past years. So if NoSQL is on the rise at the start of the hype cycle, the talks will probably be about NoSQL, the new reality. And if it is at the peak, it will be about NoSQL will change your life and fix your projects and get you a cute date and fix all your life's issues, right? Okay.
I'll go for that one.
Yeah. Sliding into the trial of disillusionment. How we do NoSQL at Cool Inc. Some cool company will tell you, yes, it is less popular now, but we do some very cool stuff with it.
It's probably a bank.
Yeah, probably.
Lagging behind a bit, but now we're one of the cool kids too.
And then the technology climbs the slope again, and it will be about patterns and practices, right? So things that the company taught themselves or learned and want to share with the world. And when it enters the plateau of productivity, it will be about NoSQL 2.0 with Silver Bullet DB, some implementation that says NoSQL is not dead, it is very productive right now, and this is our implementation and it's the best. So at the peak, you should be very worried because that is Silver Bullet prime time, right? Don't get carried away at the peak. That's very important. And the other ones, you can just see what you think of them for yourself. But it's very, I think, the current phase of the hype cycle is very relevant. So make sure you keep that into your mind. So, and the final one is, does the speaker mention any drawbacks? I'm a software consultant, so I really love when speakers say, hey, this is a cool thing, but beware because this is also not very cool about this product. This is my job, right? I go into customer sites and I try to help them the best way I can, and that also means that I have to tell them sometimes this is not a very good fit. It's a good product, but not for you, right? Or it is a good product, but I know of these drawbacks, and you have to make sure that you address the risks that come with these drawbacks. So I really like it when speakers say, hey, it's a good tool, but beware, you can't use it in production because this or that, or make sure that you assign it enough memory, or all these kind of caveats that they add. Those are very valuable because coming from their experience, you can avoid falling into the same traps as they did.
Also, if a speaker does not, that's a red flag. I mean, if something is presented to you as being, this is awesome, there are no drawbacks.
There are no drawbacks, right?
Really
red flag.
Be careful there.
Yeah, agreed. Use the Q&A at the end of the talk. So, not everyone is that comfortable with asking questions in public, and that's okay, right? You could. This is why our Twitter handles are also there at the bottom, so you can also ask us asynchronously. But if you are in a public room and there's time for Q&A, I think everyone will appreciate you asking, are there also any drawbacks to the thing you just presented? Everyone will love that question because everyone is thinking the same thing, and you're the one that takes the guts to ask it, and everyone wants to hear this answer. Are there any drawbacks? Because I can't really imagine the speaker then saying no, there aren't. I mean,
then you really solved all the world's issues.
Yeah, right.
Congrats.
Right. The rest of the audience is rooting for you in this case. So, although it might be scary sometimes, it is a very good thing, a noble thing to do for your fellow attendees, right? Try to arrange a hallway meeting. Just bumping into speakers in the hallways. Almost all speakers I know really love this, connecting with attendees. I see some raised hands there, so very good. It is, I think, most speakers call this actually the hallway track, and it is never on a conference schedule, but it's one of the most important tracks in a conference, right? Just the possibility to ask a speaker a more detailed question, and do ask them about drawbacks then. Actually, most speakers really like that. Giving talks is great, but the most exciting part for me is the one-to-one conversations with developers in the hallways during the break. Now, this is a speaker that can be very busy with his talks because he speaks everywhere, but he loves the hallway track, and he will always take time for you, and I think most speakers are like that, actually. So bump into us also afterwards,
5 times
please.
a week on 5 different continents, right?
Yeah. So these are all things you can do during the conference, but Maarten has also some tips for us what we can do after the conference has ended.
Thank you. So indeed, I mean, the conference, that's today and that's tomorrow and it's maybe until the end of the week, but then you come home and then there's weeks, there's months of you being at your daily job, be it at the office or be it at home. And it can be tempting to get back and rewatch that video and say, oh yes, that was an amazing talk and fantastic tool, fantastic product that was presented there. So how to beat survivorship bias in that situation? Well, the first thing I can recommend to you is ask yourself this simple question. How would you solve that puzzle? So the presenter, for the talk that you attended, they told you about a problem, they told you about why an existing approach did not work for them, and they told you, and look at me, or look at this project, here's how I solved it. But now take the time to sit back and ask yourself the question, okay, if I were in their shoes, how would I do that? How would I actually solve that same problem, given what they told me already about their background, about their context? Because no matter how senior or junior you are, you do have experience in your with you that you bring with you, and you can leverage that and combine that with your problem-solving skills and do the same exercise. Basically, is there a way I can solve the same problem, but without whatever they mentioned? The second thing I would like to advise to you is to start tinkering. Tinkering or just playing around. So you attended the talk, you learned about this new technology, just try to get it to work. Try to build a very simple, basic thing using that particular technology. There's a great talk of our colleague Tom Coles, it's called Learning Through Tinkering. If you Google it, you'll find, I believe, 10-ish recordings on YouTube, but if you are like, I didn't remember it, we'll post the slides online and you can just click on that link and it will bring you to what I believe is the best recording, and I saw 6 of them live.
Yeah.
But the point here really is tinkering, playing around with the technology yourself, not to solve a real serious business problem, but just to get your hands dirty and just to kick some tires and see how that thing actually works, learns you a lot about what it can do and about what it cannot do. And especially that second part is very important. The third thing that you can do, and it follows up a bit on the first, is do an experiment. Take the exact same problem as the presenter gave you, try to repeat exactly their solution, and see if you get exactly the same outcome. This is more or less of a scientific approach, because that's what scientists do the whole day. They just repeat each other's work, and they see, is it consistent? Does whatever their field of research may be, does it consistently show the same behaviors over and over again? Can I repeat what they did, or did they just have luck or any other factor that I'm not aware of, that was not mentioned in their research paper, that was not presented here on stage to you, which made them succeed? But somehow I don't have that factor, I don't have that luck, or whatever we may name it, and when I try to repeat it, it fails. So that's very what this teaches you is what was the solution that you learned about? Was it complete? Did they mention everything, or was there something in their situation that does not apply in your situation? This can be a technical thing, like, oh, but they ran on a cloud environment, whereas I'm running on an on-premises data center. Or it can be, oh, but what they did not mention is that their business context is completely different from mine. Good to know that before you start actually applying their technology to your business problem, because then you'll be bound to fail miserably. And in that regard, it makes sense to do a little statistics, and don't worry, it's not going to be hard today. Just keep track of some numbers. So, given the problem that they presented, try to find evidence of other people who did the same approach into solving that problem. Also, tried to find people who took a different path to solve the problem. And keep track of whether they succeeded or not. Now, the hard part here is the last column. And that brings us back basically to where we were like 20 minutes ago, because where do we collect these? Where do we actually find examples of people who are brave enough to say, I tried this and I failed miserably?
Yeah, we need more people like that.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be honest. My blog isn't full of failures. It's like, oh, look, this is great. Look what I found today. And sometimes it's like, oh man, I struggled about this particular error message, and it took me 2 days to figure out what it meant. And I think that's the closest to failure that my blog pages go. It's not really a big failure, is it? No. So yeah, well, that's. We are a bit running in a circle here. And eventually what we need is more people like me, like you, to be brave enough and to say, hey, I've tried to use micro front ends for building this or that application. And here is why it failed. Here is why I eventually went back to a single monolithic server-rendered JSP application. Nobody's shocked. I was guess JSF maybe. Maybe I should say JSF. Still no people shocked.
I would like to read that blog. I'm really intrigued.
Yeah, it's still on my to-do list actually.
Oh, okay.
But honestly, we need more of these examples. Like, I've tried something, it didn't work, but I also took the time to figure out why it didn't work.
Right.
Finally, no, not even finally actually. Another good thing you can do is try to look it up on Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow is this brilliant tagging system, you know, where you can look up questions based on a topic, on a technology, whatnot. And why is that? Because on Stack Overflow, we go there for the answers. That's obvious, because we have the same problem. But the thing is, which problems are there? It all starts there with people having questions, people not understanding what they're doing or why the thing that they chose to use doesn't work as they expected. So this is actually a very good source for finding the unhappy path, as opposed to the Getting Started guide and the Hello World guide that we all know. And of course, the Hello World guide will always work. I can trust you that if that doesn't work, then it's really utter rubbish. But I mean, that guide, you can follow it and it will definitely work.
Yeah.
But on Stack Overflow, you will find what did not work. And if you're lucky, you'll also find why it didn't work and what you should have done instead. And to take it a bit broader, what I personally think is definitely helpful in beating survivorship bias is knowing and appreciating what you already have in your mind, the knowledge and the experience that you have. So we all have a toolbox of things that we do know to work, and we go back to it every time that we run into an issue. For me, let me give you an example from my own experience. What I used to do a lot is being curious about, hey, there's a certain library on my class path, why is it there? And it was many, many moons ago that I learned about Maven dependency tree. Anybody who says Maven dependency tree, that doesn't make a bell ring? Seems everybody is either asleep. Oh, doesn't make a bell ring.
No.
Okay. What it does, it gives you a tree-like output of the dependencies that you have, but also the transitive dependencies that they pull in. So at the end, it gives you a tree-like structure of all the libraries that you have. Now, if you use something like Spring Boot, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but if you use Spring Boot, this dependency tree can be tens of lines, maybe even hundreds of lines long, and you have no clue still how did you get that log4j, which we all know is vulnerable because blah blah log4shell. So what I used to do is just do grep log4j.
Spring batch.
Or in this case, Spring batch. Yeah, the slide says Spring batch, but let's take log4j as an example.
Yeah.
And if I do that, then it tells me nothing more than I already knew, which is you have log4j on your class path. Oh yeah, that's right. I need to add grep, man grep. That's right. I need to add capital C to get 3 lines of context, and then I get 3 lines up and 3 lines down the context, the exact line that prints Spring Batch in this case, which is a little bit more helpful, but still doesn't really answer my question. And I think it took me a couple of years, and this is where we get into the mastery, I think, to learn that there's actually an includes option for the dependency tree. And if I would have known that the very first time, it would have made my life so much easier, because if you do includes, then it will prune that whole tree to only show the path to that particular dependency you're looking for. Now finally, that's the answer I was looking for. Now I know which transitive dependency pulled in that evil version of log4j, or in this case, Spring Batch.
Yeah.
So if I would have known this earlier, it would have saved me from people telling me, yeah, it can be quite cumbersome to have an insight on your project's dependency, but luckily we have this awesome tool, and a yearly developer license isn't really that expensive. Spoiler, always is.
Always is. Yeah.
Well, I have something in my toolbox already that can easily help me out. For free, by the way. So it really takes time, that's what I'm trying to say here, to invest in the tools that you already have, to learn to master them thoroughly, deeply, that you know how you can leverage it and make it do what you need it to do. Because at the end, I believe it is really tempting if the only tool that you have is a hammer to treat literally anything as if it were a nail. And no, those are not my words, of course. It was Maslow who pointed it out, and who am I to judge? So I think it's about time we go and wrap up.
Yeah, it is.
Let's see, what do we have? We have our key takeaways. We're in Germany, so it should be currywurst, I think, the takeaway, right?
Yeah.
All right. There's basically 3 things that we would like you to take with you. The first of all is, please share the lessons and the failures that you've made. And that's not to make a fool out of yourself. Of course, you can do that if you're confident enough. Some people don't even need to do it on purpose. I can do that even not on purpose. But share it with the community, so that others can benefit from what you have learned the hard way. Second, start tinkering around, play with the things that you've learned today and the remainder of the week and yesterday. Try to see how they behave in practice, how they work on your machine, before trying them out on your real-world problem. And finally, since it's almost 5 o'clock, see you in the hallway track. Thank you.